Okay, so this is the dashboard in this car. If you look, it is a electrician's nightmare. I got this car on a trade. I traded a big dog chopper and a Corvette to it. And this is the dash pad. And then I guess they thought they wanted to be all street outlaw and put this mess in here. Which is fine because it does have a nice motor. It's got a 468 big block Chevy in it on nitrous. So, you know, it does run really well, but the mess and these gauges not functioning properly is what we're going to tackle. I mean, it's completely stupid. I did take this loose so you didn't have to sit through all that mess and see all that and be like, what the hell? So, yeah. Anyway, we got to pull the line here through, which is for our heater gauge. It's a analog heater gauge, you know. It's not electrical. It's physical. It's when the water heats up and all that, it comes up the cable and then gives you your readout right there. So we're actually started making another dash pad like this that I had out of another car we stripped out. It's going to look a lot better, and then you got your purge button and all that over there, and that's just another electrical nightmare. So, and what we're doing too is changing this car. As you can see, it's tubbed to the gills. We're going to change this car back from a pro street car back to a actual street car because it doesn't have the signal lights. And of course, when I got it, they said that it was street legal, and it's really not. So that's what we're doing here at Outlaw Garage. And I'm doing this out in my backyard instead of down at the garage. So we're actually in a little tin building. We got another steering column, a big toolbox, and just all kinds of things to play with. So let's get this out and I'll come back to it. Alright, so just a quick show. This is the 468 big block that I was showing you. We've already changed the alternator. I think we're going to actually pull the alternator mounts and the electric water pump and then take the pump out of the electric water pump. I think we're going to powder coat those this color green on this car, or maybe the Chevrolet orange. I don't know. It just depends on how we feel that day, I guess, or I feel, however you want to say it. But just so you can get an idea of how that gauge works, if you look right there, there's a fitting right there, and it's got an end on it about that long, and I'll show it in a few minutes. It goes down in that intake and actually takes the heat of the wire. Well, it was ran through this hole in this intake, and it's actually for cooling. It's like a riser, goes all the way through, and then there's a hole right there in the firewall where your heater core and stuff used to go. You know, your wiring for your heater and stuff used to come out, your vacuum. And well, as you can see, this is a nightmare. So, and when I went to trade for the car, I did not see all of that. I mean, you're trying to do trading and stuff, you don't get to see everything. So yeah, we're changing everything back to the way it normally is, and basically we will be able to get in the car and start it by the key. All that crap that you see on there, all them buttons and all that, will be gone. There'll be one set of switches that turns your electric fuel pump and all that on. Because I mean, if the motor is what they say it is, it's 1,000 horsepower, and a manual fuel pump's just not going to keep up. So you have to run a big electrical fuel pump in this thing. So let's go in the house and see the rest of it. Okay, so we're back in the house, and let me go ahead and start by saying, guys, if you do not have a woman that will let you do little projects like this in your house, if you're married, at least clean your mess up, okay? I'm not married. I can bring stuff in and set it like this, and I solder and everything right here at my kitchen table. If I'm doing projects here at home, like we are this one. But that being said, just remember, your wife will kill you if you use her dining room table for a workbench and you don't clean up, or at least put some kind of a cover down or something like that. This is a marble table. All I gotta do is wipe it off, put a little wax stuff on it, and it busts right out. So it's kind of scratch resistant and great for this kind of stuff. So this is the dash we just took out. As you can see, it's ratty. It's broke all to pieces. It's all popping riveted together. And, you know, get this out of the way. Then on the back side, you see how the gauges and stuff are just all mangled up in there. I mean, it has no rhyme or reason. It has no neatness, no nothing to it. And when I say that, I mean there is no neatness at all. I mean, look at this mess. It's broke all to pieces. And I think what they done is this car had been built 3 or 4 times, and they just didn't care. They got tired of fooling with her. They break something here, there, and yonder. So what I done, we had another car. Actually, we had 3 cars. We had a Pontiac Phoenix and another Nova, and then this Nova. And if I keep knocking stuff off, I'll have it on the floor with them. So what I done, this is out of a 77 Nova, and it has one little issue like right here, which is nothing. We'll take this same aluminum and make this strip all the way across this right here, and you'll never know it. So what I've done is I made some cardboard templates, which was pretty easy. Just took cardboard like this right here. Matter of fact, that's one of them. That's for the radio right there. And I turned it over to the back side like this. Boom, there they are. I took and cut them out carefully, made sure they fit exactly where I want them. I mean, this is all inside the dash. You're not going to see that kind of stuff. Excuse me. And I then went and got some JB Weld, 5-minute JB Weld, and put all that in good and tight, and JB welded it in. And that gives you this part. Okay? And now you're wondering about the big gaping hole in the middle and what these switches are for. Well, if you notice, you see your purge switch right here, and then you got a light. Okay, that is stupid. Because here you are sitting there, you're trying to drive your car, and right over here, if you remember in the other video, was that box. And yes, there's the rest of the wiring harnesses and stuff we'll be doing, putting the lights back in the car because they took them out. But long story short, we're going to put these switches like this here, and put the light and the purge button inside these. I don't know which one the purge button is going to be in yet, but I think right here because it's going to be the closest. And then this car already comes with a light in it there. I'm going to have that one hooked up as well. So you got 2 lights. When you arm your nitrous, it's looking at you dead in the face. There's no way for you to even think that it's not on. And then you'll be able to purge. Then I got these 3 switches right here. Now one is a power switch. Okay, click. And it arms this one right here. And then I've got this one. Now this one here, you have to put power on it, but it's a 2-way switch. And what they'll do, they'll go right here. Probably gonna set them 1, 2, 3. Turn your power on. Then the one that you have to put power to or break one side is what you're doing. I'll use that for the fans and the water pump. And then the one that it actually takes power, I think, I'm not for sure exactly what I'm going to do with it, but I think I'm going to use it for the fuel pump. I was wanting to put the fuel pump on the ignition switch like a normal car, but I'm thinking, because I'm thinking about putting an emergency e-stop up here, that would be the better way to go to keep, you know, if you crash or whatever, at least you reach up and hit that, you know, your fuel pump's off and your ignition is going to be off and that sort of thing, and you don't have to worry about catching a fire as bad. And we will probably be putting a fire suppression in this car. I got a 10-pound Ansel system. We're just trying to figure out what all we're doing, but that's later. So then we took, and after we built that, well, while we was waiting on all that to dry, we took the actual gauges that was in that out. When we done that, what we're going to do, you can see that actually goes like this right here. That's what was in this car, right? So what we're going to do is, like this right here is for your fuel gauge. We will take and make ends that go in here, or we will solder to these ends, because it still has the factory terminal strip on it. The thing with the factory terminal strip, like I said, if you revert back to that first part of the video, it looked like a nightmare behind there because they hooked it all up to that so-called painless wiring harness thing for racing. I don't see where that's painless. I mean, it's not a tube chassis car. It's you know, you don't need that garbage. But they did leave most of the electrical system intact in the car and in the dash. They just taped it up and stuffed it to the side. So we're going to actually pull it out and reuse it and change it from, like I say, a pro street car or a wannabe drag car, pro street car, to an actual street car where you get in, start it up by the column like you're supposed to, and put it in gear and go to Logan if you want, or wherever, Tallahassee, Mizzou, or just wherever you want to go. So I guess we'll get started on this next part here. You're going to have keyhole cutters for aluminum and that sort of thing. You can buy a thin gauge and a little thicker gauge aluminum at Lowe's, Home Depot, pretty much any hardware store's got this type of aluminum, by the way. Matter of fact, this is a piece of it. You can see how thick it is there. This is a piece that I had made for my other car and didn't like it, you know, because it actually went on the backside, so the cuts don't have to be perfect. Countersunk it, bolted in. Didn't like the way it had it in there. Took it out and changed it completely. But I brought this out so you can see how thick it was. And, you know, you can buy that sheet. Probably should have just done this to begin with. Yeah, you need a towel and stuff. And pencils, just everything that you can get your paws on to do this. But that sheet is, I think it's 12 by 15 or something like that. And then, of course, I got this. It's a real thin sheet of aluminum. I'll get it spit out in a second. I went to AutoZone. I think it was AutoZone, and got that out of their dumpster. I got a buddy at work compressor. We throwed a bunch of that away, so he wouldn't get in trouble. We went at nighttime, and I walked back there and got it. But that besides that point, I mean, that's how I got the aluminum. And like I said, I mean, you see that garbage, and then you see that. And yes, I do have meters and all that stuff sitting here. I mean, that right there is nothing but wiring for that car because, like I said, we are changed it back to an original car and they chopped the ass off of it. So, yeah, we're going to have to do a lot of things. And then this is another set of gauges that was in that other car that we took out, which is good gauges. And instead of not being able to see what our transmission is doing on our heat, we're going to put the other heat gauge right here where it says water temperature, that one there, and it goes up to 280. We're going to put it in the transmission side. So we'll probably be cutting this between them two right there, so it'll be down like right here where your ratchet shifter is. And yeah, it's going to be interesting. So I guess I got a lot of work to do. I got to get started on it. Okay, so now we're taking the gauges out. These are little bolts like this right here, which most of these analog gauges you buy from AutoZone or Jegs or whoever has those in it. This one here, somebody is, you know, that's your speedo. Somebody, I'll move that back. Somebody put it in like that and it went across to that one, okay? And then these others have these, I call them H braces, L braces, M braces, whatever, and the two little bolts stick up through just like those two, and they press again and it holds them in. Wonderful, yippee skippy. Those come apart pretty easy. If they don't, a pair of channel locks will get them. But those right there are the two-piece little guides. And if you ain't got none of those, you can bend. If you go, you can buy that same little piece of aluminum or steel. You can bend that. I mean, anything to just push pressure against that gauge and hold it against that facing, and it'll stay right in there for good. But I think when we do these, we're going to do them just a little bit different. I think we're going to stretch a bar across the ones that are the same size kind of thing to help for grounding and stuff. I ain't for sure yet. It's just an idea. But I wanted to touch base on that and, you know, let you look again at what kind of mess that they have here. I mean, wire nuts. This stuff's supposed to be soldered, guys. A lot of guys don't know how to solder. I didn't know how to solder for years. So, you know, I never did use wire nuts, though, because, well, number one, my dad taught me better. And number two, after that, when I became on my own, I became an electrician. I knew that this right here was not what I wanted in my car, because this can cause you issues. Another thing, talking about issues, on this one here, if you wanted, you see this edge right here? When you cut your cardboard out, and the idea was originally to put it all the way to this edge, get the cuts really clean, and either take little bitty bolts or drill it, and that's what I had the pop rivet gun for. The idea was, like I say, initially, to put these switches sticking in like this, right? And then if you had some kind of issue, you could either drill them out or take the little bolts out of either side, because I was going to do this whole front like that, and you know, it'd be completely covered. And that one the same way. And I thought, you know what? There's no need. You might as well make it solid, because if you've got an issue, you have to drop that steering column on these older cars and pull that anyway, because, you know, most of the time, if you've got you can't reach back in behind it to get to the wires anyhow, so you got to drop it anyway. So I decided to do it this way. May not be the 100% best way in the world to have done it, but for right now, that's what I want to do. Even if these cars got a tilt column, some of them will not come out. I have had some that won't. You still got to tilt the column all the way down and loosen the two nuts up on your steering column and let that thing come down about that far. This car does not have a tilt column. My other car has a tilt column, still had to drop it down. Like I said, the Phoenix and Nova are identical cars. The only thing is different is the grill in them. Subframes, all of that are the same exact everything. So that's just a little heads up there. And we're going to get the rest of these gauges out, and then we'll look at it. Okay, so what we done, just to make sure, because this is a 75 Nova, and the one this dash came out of is a 77. See that piece right there? That piece is missing. It really doesn't matter though, because if you look, everything's going to set where it's supposed to go. All the bolts are going to line up and that sort of thing. That gap right there is a little bit of a concern, but they have gutted this dash pad. So what I'll probably do is cut me a piece of aluminum and make it go all the way around and be long, like that right there, and it'll come all the way down and around to that edge. That's why when it bolts in, at least it'll cover that hole right there and look like something. And then that piece right there, I've got some other dash pads and stuff that we can cut that and JB weld and make it look really, really nice. But that's what it's going to look like. As you can see, the column is down out of it. That's the only way you can get that dash out, because if you look right here, this big part catches right here. If you don't do it, you're just SOL. See, it just comes out like that right there. Lift it up, boom. But yeah, this it's a little bit of a project, but you know, it is a good looking car and it does run really good. So I decided we were gonna, instead of just make it a track queen, I'm gonna take it, and yes, it does have bigs and littles. It's got 16 533s on the back. Mickey Thompson ET Streets. You can see them right there. Yes, they are a little bit low, but yeah, this is my little workshop whenever I don't have it down at my place to work on. I play here at the house. But anyway, yeah, that's you know, just basically throwing that out there. If you got cars that are the same, or you get a dashboard out or something, double check a few things and see what you're going to have to make. Because if you put all your gauges in, slap up and say, oh damn, well, guess what, you may have to take it all back apart to redo it, or it just may not come out the way you want it to. You know, it may not look good, and then you're not going to be pleased with it, and it's just a spiral from there. And some people, they don't care as long as it works, right? I know a lot of people like that, so there you go. Okay, so I've been a little busy. I've got these the switches and gauges and everything are in. As you remember, that's what we were doing. We're proof fitting and all that. The JB weld on these did not work because this is aluminum going to plastic. So what had happened, once I put the JB weld on here, I actually pushed on it and it popped out. Well, that's all fine and good. So I went to O'Reilly's and was on my way to AutoZone and a couple other places, and I found this stuff. It's called Rapid Fix, and this is like super glue, and then this is a welding powder. So basically you can use it like super glue. You just dump it on there and press it on, say, to a flat surface, And then your crack that goes around the back side of it, and I'll show it to you. Like those right there, if you see, you'll see the weld powder and how it does. It bonds it to it. And it's actually pretty good. You see it right there? I kind of done it right there because this was a hard piece to get into. And I did kind of overdo it a little right there. Yeah, big deal. You can grind it off. You take a little grinder and it actually will grind up. So, the other thing is, you got these big places here and stuff like that. So, I tried to use the aluminum like you buy from Lowe's or one of those places there. It is aluminum, and I had what they call the Aluma weld. Well, for whatever reason, it didn't want to stick to it. So, I got the Rapid Fix out, and I built this part. Ta-da! Yeah, I gotta bend that back down there, but you see right there where I heated it up and was trying to use the aluminum weld, and it just didn't want to stick. So I took and done on both the front and the back, and I'll take the grinder, and I'll grind and clean it up, and then I'll buff that whole piece. And this piece here we done the same. You can see it there. It's just I just cut a 45 in it, joined it together, and done it on the back and on the inside. Right there. We'll take a grinder and clean it out, and we'll buff all this up, and we'll go from the back side and countersink our holes and all that stuff. So once it goes back into the car, it looks really, really good. And yeah, I did clean the kitchen table up. As you can see, there's the wires and everything does look a lot better than what it did. But I do have another piece of thin aluminum laying on the bottom there where I work. I clean up all that mess. But that's pretty much how that thing looks compared to the first part of it. I did get the painless harness out of the car. I'll be showing you that. All that's been done, and I'll show you all those pieces. So basically, we're taking a drag car or a pro street car, and we're going to turn it into a street car that you can get into, fire up, and drive. I also made this other set of gauges here. What I've got, because it is a drag car, I have 2 water temperature gauges and another amp gauge here at my thumb, because you see we got an amp gauge there. But what I want to do on this deal, and it's just me wanting to do it. You can take the other amp gauge and do what you wish. But what I want to do is, once everything's wired up in this dash cluster, and this will be measuring the voltage coming out of the alternator. See what I'm saying? So if you're pumping out while you're running, say the alternator's pushing 14 volts, the batteries on this car are in the back, so you want to try to monitor back there as well. I know it's kind of a long haul, but still you want to go back there at the battery and tie in on one of the other batteries and see if you're getting pretty close to the same voltage back there as you do up here, which you're not. You're going to have a little bit of a fluctuation unless you're on the throttle at idle and stuff, so forth. That's the way if you start noticing you've got battery trouble and that sort of thing, you can where to go. It'll help, because you'll be able to tell a big difference in it. That's just my idea for that for right now. If it doesn't work, then of course there'll be 2 alternator or battery gauges, and they'll both be pretty close to the same voltage and amperage, and you should never lose sight of it and be able to run the car. Okay, so now we've seen this thing in there, and we've decided, okay, it looks good. I did change this part right here. If you remember, I had it bent. If you look back on the video, you'll see that it's bent. I decided to use rivets, and then of course I used that glue over there, which it held. It's that Rapid Fix. Now it held really good, but for whatever reason it did not want to hold really good right here, where I butted the 2 joints together. So what I decided to do was bunt them 2 joints together, then take and band that round. If you look there, it's bent round right here, and then I took and beveled it and then this piece here is beveled, and I slid them up in there and I riveted them. Well, then I decided, you know, because I was going to have to rivet it anyway, and the reason that it was going to have to be riveted, and I don't want to press epoxy. Stand her up there. If you look at this thing, it's 1970s. I mean, there's your big crack there at the bolt hole, and it's tore out. There's another bolt hole. It's wallered, and as you go all the way across, there's another one cracked. That's broke out to that end, and then, of course, it comes straight down this side. Now, this is a 77 dash, okay? That's a 75 car, and like I showed you, that space that was right here, we did make a piece to cover up for that, and I'll show it to you in a second. But what I want to do is, where these are broken, I wanted to add these straps right here, because we're going to come in behind it, and we'll drill this, each and every one of them, through this piece of this piece of aluminum. Well, when you do that, there you go, throw it down. You'll have your actual bolt holes in here, and they'll kind of be between the rivets, you know, and it'll look good. And we'll polish this too. Even though it's down in there, we'll take that drill and a polisher, and we'll polish that aluminum. It'll look real good. It'll clean up. You know, I'm not going for a, oh my God, I'm a manufacturer look, as to it looks good, it's functional and all that. Particular reasons being is, number one, this is just to show that what you can do out in your backyard, because the car is literally in a little carport out in my backyard. If I wanted to do it perfect, I would have took the car to my shop, my little garage. I brought my other car up here, and just switched them out. And I've got welders, aluminum welders, and everything. I'd have welded that up, grinded it down, polished it all. I mean, it would have been a different kind of job. But that's not what this is for. This is, this is just to show that I'm still a good old country boy. I still know what I'm doing. I backwoods fixes, stuff like that. That's what this is for. Now, later videos and stuff, you'll see us do all kinds of other stuff. But I wanted to show and touch on that for a second, because it'd be real funny. All of a sudden you sit and you're like, well, what in the world did he do there? So, yeah, that's why that is. And then, like, right here on the side, I'll come down here and put a couple of rivets in it. But I've got real long rivets, so that's another thing. I'll have to probably go get some shorter rivets. Speaking of rivets, what's in my mind? If you look right here, I grinded them off. When I pulled them all the way up tight, and that's a washer right there, I grinded them off. And I'll do these back ones the same way. Because if you look, these tabs aren't no higher than these tabs right here. So when it goes up inside there, which is no big deal, it's got a little drop thing, and yeah, it'll be all right. But you still want to grind them off so you don't have to try to force nothing. You've got plenty of room to do that. So that's just how this thing looks as of right now. I know it's going to turn sideways on your screen, but let's turn it back that way. Let's try that. Oh, and acetone. That's another thing. When you're dealing with that rapid fix and you're dealing with this aluminum and stuff, I like acetone, and so I can even down in there in them gauges and things like that when you're getting ready, because we're going to solder in wires and stuff in the back. I love acetone for that. It cleans it up. Then you get that actual solder stuff, heat it up, and them wires are just crispy clean. Your solder sticks good. You have no malfunctions. That's the other thing, on the first part of this thing, if you looked at it, this car was an electrical nightmare. I mean, yeah, it did work. I'll agree with that. It was functional. But the thing about it is, who needs functional when you go to the track and a wire comes loose, or doing what we're doing? We're changing a drag car, a pro street car, whatever you want to call that car, into a actual, street car that you can drive. Get in, turn the key on, fire it up. You don't have all that painless wire and harness stuff, fuel pumps and all that. You've got 3 switches that you've got to really worry about to get in and drive it. You'll raise these up, turn your power on, turn your fuel pump on after the car starts, because it's got fuel in the car, and then turn your fans and stuff on. Then, of course, you got all your gauges here, and your other gauge is going to be down here at the bottom for all your heat on your transmission and your motor. You're ready to go. Then if you're going to crank it up and race it, there's your nitrous. Your red light comes on, you're armed, smash the fuel, it's gone. And if something happens, you know, you get squirrely or down on the track, and you feel like you're going to crash when you flip these two like this. That also kills this one, because on the back of that switchboard that we put on there is a hot that'll come off to this, and that's what's going to run your nitrous. So, you know, on your wide open throttle. So, yeah, even though you flip that on, if the rest of the main power switch ain't on, you ain't got nothing. Just a little safety thing I thought about. So that's part of that. I'll go ahead and get the rest of this drilled in and done, and we're almost ready to install this. Oh, and one last thing in the middle of this, and I'll mention it 3 or 4 more times. This did not take one day, guys. This took, I've worked on this an hour or so at the minimum every day for probably a week now to get to this point. I mean, there's other things I have to do, you know, but what I'm saying is, when you sit down to do this kind of a project, don't think you're just going to go buy all this stuff and commence to cutting a bit. Oh, I can do this in a day. Well, you know, you may do it, but yeah, it's going to be tough. And like I said, I don't have any bolts or nothing in none of this right here that you can see. See, I wanted it to not have a bunch of bolts and stuff in it. If I was going to put a bunch of bolts in, I might as well just put it around the outside right here and done like they done on that blue one, and then bolted it in and said yippee skippy. But I didn't want that. I wanted it clean. I wanted to see the wood grain, and I wanted it to, you know, look good. Like I said, it's not perfect. It wasn't meant to be perfect. It was meant to show you can do a clean job in the little old building in the backwoods and change that car over, you know, to drive. Anybody can. But this is the other piece we made. Well, it's in my mind. Remember, that piece there is too short. So this piece is off of the other dash pad. What it'll do, it'll slide in. You see I've got a notch cut it right there. Click. Now, once you put all this up, or you put this up against the dash pad first, then you'll slide this one here over top of it and click it in, and I'll take and drill this for a little bolt. We'll go out and measure and everything. I'll drill this for a little self-tapping bolt and be done with it, and there it is. You're not really paying no mind because the door closes right there. Good to go. And that's really all I'm gonna say on that. So I'm gonna get busy and finish putting all these rivets in and get it straight and square. I wish I had a better way of doing this, but I'm having to actually hold this thing by hand because, of course, this is the first video I've ever done. So kind of, you know, bear with me on that. If it turns out pretty good and this does well, I'll get an actual stand to hold this phone and a GoPro and a couple other things and a few other things when we go to do other projects. Okay guys, here we go. This is the before. This is what we had in the car where your gauges was, your purging your nitrous switch, and then there was nothing there in that big hole, okay? The only thing difference is on this one is I cut that piece off the side of it, you know, it rounded off. This is what we have now. If you reflect back to the original beginning video, you'll see that other one, but that looks much better. And you got to remember too, we had all those gauges, and then had on just to the side right here where your dash pad would be, had that big painless harness off to the side of this one. So I've completely done away with that and just put 4 switches in total. And then right here will be another set of little gauges that go under the bottom to finish out your temperature, because you'll see I've got oil pressure, fuel, speed, and volts, you know. So you're I meant to turn it the other way, but since I went ahead and dropped it, you see how I got that pop everything there, and it is very strong. I'll show you. I mean, you can get hold of this. Yeah. And then there's the back of it. We actually just turned around. I actually took the original strip right here. This is where the original plug goes in, right? And I cut it, because some of this ain't gonna be used no more, because you got to use right here. So what you'll have that plug that comes in, and you'll have your left blinker, your high-low beam, and your right blinker lights. That'll be the only thing that is left that works in the plug-in. And then the rest of this, when it comes out, it'll have its own little plug-in as well on them wires. So when you pull this thing out, there'll be enough room when you lay this dashboard out, you can take it out and work on it if you have to, or whatever. Just depends upon what's going on. But you know, like right here's your nitro switch, and there's that circuit board I was talking about. It's got your 3 switches on it, and all that stuff was held in. I was talking about putting that black tape if you had a big crack when you use that rapid fix. So that's what I did right there. And what I done was I put that piece of tape on it. Then from the other side, I filled it full of that weld, and then filled it full of that glue. And as you can see, it's in there. There's no pulling it up out of there once you get it to seat. But it likes to glue into flat surfaces better than it does anything else. If it didn't, what I was going to do was try to get some small screws and drill like one right here or right here even, and put like a washer or something on it maybe to pull those in. I don't know, what it worked and done what it was supposed to do, so we don't have to worry about that. But that's just a little view of what we had, which was pretty well junk, and then what we got. So it's not bad. And also, this is an old, remember I told you I don't have no special tools here at my house. All I've got is some hammers, a grinder with a cut-off disc, and a drill. And this old dresser sitting out here on the back porch. And that's what I have beat and hammered. You see the aluminum there. You see parts of plastic cut out. You see where I've bent this to make some of them curves. You see right here where I use the keyhole saw to cut through them gauges and all that stuff. It's all done right here. There's didn't have no nothing, no vices, none of that. I even took and I've got an old treadmill sitting out here, and I even took, right there it is. I even took and used it to bend round shapes with, you know, and try different things. So there's nothing here being bought other than the gauges and the switches and the metal, you know. But what I mean is there's nothing store-bought. There's, you know, I done it on my own. And yeah, that's a big mess I've got out back. We was cleaning up after a project, but besides that, there's nothing here that's bought. I mean, everything was hand done, hand fit, and put together. You know, it's simple. All right, so here's what we've done. We, of course, we're out in the car. I mean, you can see that. And this is all the wiring harnesses, okay? If you remember, we had the big old box right there, and we took all that stuff out, and all that crappy wiring was back in there. There ain't nothing back in there now. It's all mostly factory stuff. So what I've decided to do, I've already took it all out, you know, because there's no use in y'all seeing all that ignorant stuff. I think I told you on there that when you cut your wires, make sure you try to write them down in a notepad like this. And, you know, we already have prints of this stuff that the guy that already pre-wired this thing gave to me. So I pretty much have everything I needed, right? There's your MSD ignition. There's your little two-step box. You remember it was glued right here with double-sided tape. So what I've done, I mean, it's preset, right? And what I want to do later, just not right now, is take another piece of aluminum and make a little box right here, which I think I have some done at my shop, and bolt it in right here. And I'll bring these two boxes and bolt them in right there. So when you drop this, you got your MSD box here and that there. That's why you pre-plan this stuff. Make sure you leave enough wires. If you look, there's plenty of wire there to move that box to where I can move it right here. Also, when you do that, make sure to keep in mind the grounding situation on them type box. You know, you want to make sure you add extra grounds, frame grounds to your battery and all that stuff, because if you pull power through that box into the frame and it does not go back to the battery or like it's supposed to, you create a heat situation and all that, and you're just not doing what you're supposed to do, and you will burn that box up. And that box is just a little too expensive to be going to buy every other weekend, right? Also, as you can see right there, there's a little bit of a mess, but that has to do with this MSD box and your charging system. if you remember, we was talking about, I'm gonna put a set of gauges right here, for, you know, to charge with. What the idea is the top set of gauges is going to read your alternator out there. That's what the one wire right there is coming out. They cut all that stuff when this was a true pro street car, and moved it to the back because the batteries are in the back. So what I'm going to do, and I'll show you what I've done, because see, this is your original harness right here that runs your gauges. See, you didn't have a set of gauges on this car. What they done, which is perfectly fine, but what they done, they had, which this is a different harness. I went ahead and put an actual GM harness on it, which I have from another car. So they had like this one right here going to the back bolt, which is your output, and then you put a jumper from your output. See it red right there? It's all it does is jumpers right here. It does it right back right there. And then that brown one goes back through that harness up across into your block right there beside your brake booster and back in. Well, as you can see, they've kind of crippled the harness on this thing. So again, I mean, we're out here in my little building doing this because, like I said, I want to prove you can do it. You don't need a big shop or a big garage. You just need some few hand tools and then the gumption. And I had other wiring harnesses off cars just like this. Most all GM wiring harnesses, guys, are the same. They may not be over there at the hookups, but the colors, if you look them up, as long as you're in the same era, right? This is a 1975 car, so from like 1973 or 74, if I remember when I looked on that, because see, pre that had points and generators and not alternators, so you had a few other boxes on there. But anyway, back to what I was saying. Go to your local junkyard. They got old dig trucks, cars and stuff. You can get 90% of that wiring harness and put back in this car. I mean, you got wire loom right there. You can buy that at your local O'Reilly's, AutoZone, Advanced, and you just come right there, cut it, and put it right back in. Google the wiring diagram. I mean, it's pretty well self-explanatory, and you know, simple for me and for anybody else. Okay, so as you can hear in the background, we've got it's starting to get spring around here, and we got everybody with their bikes and everything else out drag racing, getting ready. And here's what we got. We have taken and made all of our harnesses. You know, here's for your lights. It's one, and we labeled everything. So these two are power for your lights. See them there? And then this is your ground, okay, for your lights. And it's all labeled right here. Park lights, park lights. And here in a second, I'll show you in the dash pad, it's done the same exact way. Now, remember we left this plug right here in these three lights, so when we turn the signals on, your signal blinkers will work left and right, and then your high and low beam will work. That's the only, well, that and a couple other things, but it's really the only reason that's on there, because I didn't want to try to take these out and solder ends to them little bulbs right there. I mean, it's just wow, right? So I left them on there. So I went ahead and made all these harnesses and done all this. And what you got right here, these are your grounds for your gauges, done in doubles. And we're using the pre-existing grounds in there, and I'll show y'all that in a minute. This is your ignition, okay? And what happens when you turn your ignition on, your gauges get power, okay? So that's what we done back here. Again, you've only got two gauges that get power. You know, you got your fuel gauge and your alternator gauge that gets power, and then they go to a ground, and then the other part, your other terminal end goes to like the alternator or the fuel sender or whatever you're running. Some of them are for heat switches, you know, your heat gauge, and then some of them for when it goes up or so forth. Some of these gauges, they'll actually click a set of contacts. You can buy them. They're really expensive. They'll kick another set of contacts. They'll turn your electric fans on. But these gauges aren't. They're a good quality gauge, but they're not that expensive. And then of course, you know, you got your light switch and your windshield wiper motor switch. Now over here, all this is your nitro stuff. We ain't even started on none of that yet. Right now, we're just trying to get, and as you can see, I've got meters and everything else, and it's still a little bit of a mess, but all your boxes in there is your MSD box. Then of course there's your two-step. All that's been fixed and looks a lot better. I mean, better than that big mess that was in there. Then all this, you know, if you sit there and look at it, say, oh my God, it's not that bad. Okay, everything is labeled. Here's the plug I was talking about, plugs in, and everything is labeled to be just unplugged and stuff like that. And then of course it's your windshield wiper, and then there's your light harness. It's really not that bad. This is part of the original harness I folded back and brought back. Because it goes all the way across there. It was for your radio and all that stuff. We're going to use parts of this, like the grounds. This is another light wire. This is a guaranteed hot constantly. I mean, we got a couple other blowed fuses, but you know, we've got all kinds of options to pick up power for our nitrous system and stuff. See, because here, this one right here, that's one of your nitrous wires that go out through there, and then this mess. These are the grounds off of your lights and stuff like that. You look at it there. We're not going to do it. We're going to put them to the actual frame grounds for this car. You see, that's the way that, you know, I'm not running down 15 dozen things. See there? I've got two sets of grounds right there. This one goes back in the harness. This one goes back in the harness. It also grounds twice to the frame inside there. And we may do that to this one here. We may bring it in down here to one of these rails and guarantee. That's why when you touch a button or you turn a gauge on or whatever, everything works like it should. So that's what really takes so long when you're doing someone else's, how you say it without me. I'm trying to say this stuff without being a jerk about things, but when you trade for a car or you buy a car that someone else done, you're getting their problems and their mess. So if you get in there and you drive it and it runs good and stuff, and then you decide you want to work on it, you get to looking, well, I don't like it, well, you're going to do what I'm doing. And you know, again, this car was, how you say, streetable, but it wasn't a street car. I mean, you had to turn the light on. If you remember that big old painless bar was right here, you had to start your motor, start your fuel pump, start your motor, all your ignition, all that stuff through here. I mean, we got rid of that. We put it all where it belongs. Turn the key on, turn the key off. Motor starts, motor turns off. All the gauges are going to work properly. See, all the gauges didn't work properly on this thing because the way they had it, it was all bunched up, cut up. It wasn't getting power. I mean, they were twisted together. Using wire nuts and these, I can find a piece of this wire right here. These old split connectors, see them right there? Them ain't nothing but garbage. You don't use junk like that in a car that you're going to put on a track, or heck, even if you're going to run it. Yeah, they did in the old days. I mean, that's what they used, but no. I mean, you can buy a package of butt connectors for $3, and you can get online and buy these shrink wraps right here. I think I got on that thing called Geek, and I give $1.50 for those, and had them shipped in here for $1. So I got $2.50 in them, I think. I may not have that in. They might have been free, and I might have just paid $1 shipping. But yeah, that's what we've been into. And by no means has this taken me just a day either. I mean, this video may just be like 30 minutes long or 40 minutes long. I'm not sure how long it's going to be till I'm done and get it all put together and put on here, but this has taken me a week. You know, I've worked on it a little bit each day, and like I say, I've had other things I have to do, you know, go get parts and that sort of thing. So, yeah, that's just a little update on what we're doing.